Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Go Virginia Regional Council Committee meeting. Glad to have everyone here as we continue advancing our work to strengthen the state board and regional council engagement. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John King, and I lead this committee on behalf of the state board. So we look forward to some really good discussion today. We're going to focus on several key areas, including regional fund utilization, continued improvements to our application evaluation and communication processes. Just as a reminder, this meeting is structured for discussion among committee members and members of the Regional Council Advisory Group. If you're joining virtually, we ask participants be on camera and remain muted unless speaking. This meeting is being recorded. Minutes will be distributed following the meeting. I'd now like to officially call the meeting to order. Shara, can you please conduct the roll call?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'll conduct the roll call for this committee meeting. Mr. Jim Chang. Mr. John Kane.
Here.
Delegate Michelle Maldonado. Okay, I'll go ahead and do a roll call for our regional council advisory members. From Region 1, Pam Foley-Price. Region 2, Richmond Vincent.
Hello, this is Justin Yalung filling in for Richmond.
Thank you. Justin.
Yes, that's correct.
Region 3, Randy Lau.
Here.
Region 4, Elizabeth Creamer. Region 5, Sarah Jane Kirkland. Here. Region 6, John Anzavino. Region 7, Paul Liberty. Oh.
Be quiet.
Actually, I don't know if this is. Anybody wants to sit up here, please. There we go. Okay.
Yes. Region 8, Yolanda Shields.
Here.
Region 9, Ethan Dunstan.
Good morning, present.
Good morning. Thank you. Roll call complete.
Let's see. At this time, we welcome any public comments. Members of the public may indicate their interest in speaking by raising their hand or commenting in the meeting chat. Share, we received any written comments?
We have not received any written comments.
Share, can you please recognize any members of the public who would like to provide public comment?
At this time, I do not see any indications that someone wants to provide public comment at this time.
Okay, with that, we'll close the public comment period. Consent agenda. Before we move into our formal agenda, we need to approve the meeting minutes from our October 2025 meeting. The minutes were shared in advance of today's meeting. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented. Well, you know, yes, I can make that motion.
They're not.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
No, so we can't do it.
Yeah.
So, all right. Okay. So we'll skip them. Okay. So now we're moving into kind of the part of the agenda. Get our productivity section with an update on our regional fund balances and projections. This item is part of the committee's continued focus on ensuring that Go Virginia funds are being deployed effectively and aligned with regional priorities. Understanding where regions stand in terms of available balances is critical as we look forward to the upcoming funding cycle. This update will also help identify opportunities to accelerate project pipelines and ensure funds are being utilized in a timely and strategic manner. So now I'll turn it over to Tab and DHCD to walk us through the current balances and forecasts.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon Gibson. I'm the program manager for Go Virginia here at DHCD. Today, I'll walk you through the unobligated balances for each region and what we forecast to close out for this fiscal year. If you look over to the far left where it says July 1 starting year available, that's the balance that each region started out with at the beginning of this fiscal year. As you move towards the right where it says Q1 awarded or Q2 awarded, those were awards that were made out of the per capita fund. What you will notice that this chart does not include funds from our competitive fund. This is just strictly focused on the regional allocation. As you can also see where it says FY26 Q3 awards pending, these are awards that we anticipate the board to approve later on today during the board meeting. And then the Q4, these are projects that we have in the pipeline. And this is what has been reported from the regions to DHCD staff. So this is certainly an estimate. As we move further to the right of the graph, you'll see a forecast of what the unobligated fund balance will be. As you can notice, we have some regions that are above 80% or close to 100%. You may notice two regions, regions 3 and 6, are over 100%. And what happens there is that region utilized all of their per capita allocation, and we use funds from the competitive fund to cover those projects. We do have areas of opportunity for some of the regions, but our staff is working to make sure that they can utilize as much as we can prior to the end of this fiscal year. Our staff works closely with each regional staff to make sure that we have, our finger on what is coming down the pipeline. And our staff does a great job providing technical assistance to ensure that applications can get across the finish line. I'll pause and if the chair has any comments or if there's any questions from our regional council.
So the only other thing I'm going to add, we've talked about this for several meetings in a row and trying to keep this in front of the group so we can really utilize all the funds that are available to us. And Sarah, I'm going to ask that you feel free to jump in, but, because I may butcher the notes, but basically the $10 million recapture that had been spoken to, that's been confirmed that money is going back.
That's correct.
And then there's another 20 million still up in the air from the program that is yet to be decided whether that's going to be reverted back. So it's kind of that real-time example of what we've been, well, not kind of, it is a real-time example of what we've been talking about. If we don't utilize all our funds.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. I don't want to pretend that it is. We know that, we're going to talk a little bit about growth and diversification plans and how important these projects that line up with those. But again, to see $10 million come out of the fund, obviously is disappointing. But keeping this in front of us, keeping the projects moving, just reminds us how important that is.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right, John. The police budget was signed by the governor on February 20th. That included a $10 million reversion of unobligated funds. So I just want to make sure folks understand in the room, that's not going to disrupt any previously funded projects, okay? But resource utilization is, needs to be a topic of discussion at the regional council level. And of course, we have staff that are assigned to each region to help support project development. So Go Virginia was designed as a non-reverting fund, and I appreciate non-reverting funds because they do give regions an opportunity to develop sometimes very complex projects that may take more than one funding cycle, for example. But from a budgeting perspective, you got to realize budgets are built in the fall, right? Okay, in the fall. So we're talking like September, October of last year. And we are a 4-cycle funding program. So after those budgets are submitted, December meeting, March meeting, June meeting. And of course, we can't really understand where we're going to end up at the end until the budget is signed by the governor. So we're always looking to balance that. So I do want to applaud those regions which fully utilized their per capita allocation and in some cases exceeded it. I think this is really strong performance for the year. And when we combine this with the competitive fund awards, it's really going to be a very, very strong year. And we're going to be very close to target in terms of obligating the funds available for the program. But I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Two additional comments, one on the table on your screen, that those that are over 100%, that's just informational, that's coming out of the competitive fund. And then that's how that exceeds the 100%.
Yes.
The other piece is, if I was in the region, first thing I would say is, where's that $10 million coming from? And we don't know the answer to that yet. So the staff is going to come back with some recommendations now that we have that firmly in place. And we'll have more direction on where that $10 million, how it'll come out of the regions in the near.
Okay, and I can share just a bit on past precedent. So this isn't the first time this has happened to the fund. You do not see the competitive fund here, okay? Nor do you see a program which is going to sunset the Helene Business Recovery Initiative, which both have available balances. So I don't want any of the regional councils to feel panicked that any of these funds would be reverted. But I think, obviously, depending on how we end the year, we may have to distribute that in a little bit of a different way. So, yes, you're absolutely right. And what we're proposing is that the executive committee discusses this issue, come up with a couple methodologies or recommendations for the state board to discuss at their June meeting as to how the reversion is going to be accomplished. Because it's not prescribed in the budget.
Any questions? Anybody online have any questions?
I just have just a edification question. Is there ever an opportunity to reallocate funds unused from other regions, or is that an unfair per capita consideration?
So the budget is fairly prescriptive with the distribution of the fund. It speaks to a competitive fund at a dollar level and the remaining funds to be distributed on a per capita basis. The state board adopted a policy, which we kindly refer to as the max carryover allowance. So no region is allowed to carry over more than their single year per capita allocation forward. If they do have a balance that exceeds that, which would be a rare occurrence, it would mean essentially they didn't approve any projects during that year, but it has happened. Those funds would move into the competitive fund and then would be available for other regions. And two great examples here are regions 3 and region 6 to use for what we call single region competitive applications. So those funds would become available, but not reallocated, I think, in the way you're inquiring.
Thank you. That was I understand it to be structural by design and a good reminder. Thank you. Thanks for my humoring my question.
Ethan?
Yeah, thank you. I think Region 9 should get some sort of special prize for coming in exactly at budget. But my question really in seriousness relates to the use of the competitive funds. Are we allowed to, we actually did do a lot of work on our projects and budgets. I was under the impression that you could only dip into competitive funds through a very specific and distinct process. Is that correct? And there's a separate application, I guess, that goes with that process, or are there monies available if you have a project that overruns?
So Ethan, the way that this is structured, if the region is requesting access to the competitive fund, they do need to fill out the competitive fund application. And those projects have to be scored, and there's a cut score, if you will, for eligibility to access those funds. We do not want this to be an onerous process at all, But the statute is fairly clear on the disbursement of competitive funds, which is why we have a slightly different process. Regions that have obligated a high percentage, and Region 9 would fall into that category, are willing and free to submit applications to access the competitive fund. I would just advise any regional council that's considering that to take a look at the scoring rubric. Okay? Because it's a little, it's not different. It's essentially the evaluation criteria. But it does require a score, because we could envision a time when we have multiple applicants competing for those same finite resources. So it's just an evaluation tool, so the board can make decisions if we do run into a situation where we have applications that exceed the available resource there.
Very good. Thank you, Sarah.
And you did access it last year.
Yeah, I know we did for the one project. I just wasn't sure if it always had to be, you know, projects of that nature, or if there were other abilities to do that.
No, I just think you got to remember exceptional kind of economic opportunity, and you may be competing with other projects. So, you know, these would be, you know, I think for a regional council to look at doing that when they've got a really incredible opportunity is pretty important.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sarah, this is Randy Leo. I think if you do access the competitive funds, like we have, Region 3 has done, you aren't, you know, I know those are designed for multi-regions, but I guess in this case where you've expended your pro capita, you're not dinged, if you will, for not having a multi-region participation in this particular case.
So Randy, we updated the competitive guidelines a few years ago to provide 2 tracks to access. One of them is what we call a single region competitive, which is what Region 9 did. And another is a multi-region competitive application.
Okay, so there's
and-
there's a pathway.
Absolutely, sir, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You've got the right person with the breadcrumbs leading you down the path. Right on board.
Shara's totally got it, and really the team. I think the opening the aperture a bit, because we did have regions that were enthusiastically tapping out their per capita allocation. And we did have funds available in the competitive fund, and so we wanted to make sure we created a couple paths of access there.
In seriousness, I think it's natural, particularly with the turnover at the regional council level as well, to have these kind of questions ongoing. And I would just encourage, every time we have a meeting, every time we have a board meeting, application review, and I've been involved with Go Virginia since the beginning, I still learn something. And there are a lot of moving pieces to me. I'm not saying it's confusing. It's just, if you're not doing it every day, it's hard to keep up with. So I would just encourage at the regional council, please reach out to staff, because I've always found that they're really eager to help us understand. And that's probably a key cornerstone to making sure you spend all your money. It's understanding what money can be spent and how. Like I said, I've been doing this a while as well, even at the regional council level, and I still learn. So, anything else? Okay. Next thing on the agenda, site planning grants capacity. So we're gonna review our findings from a capacity analysis on these planning grants. As you know, recent policy board updates have expanded flexibility around removing site planning activities from counting towards a region's annual allocation. DHCD staff took a closer look at how regions are currently utilizing site planning grants. And so we want to take this opportunity to walk briefly through key observations and trends. Share.
Sure. So as John mentioned, last quarter, we received a request to quantify the added capacity now that sites planning grants will no longer count towards the 250,000 allocation. That study will be detailed in the next committee meeting, following after this during the governance and policy committee meeting. They have the exact numbers, but just at a high level, what we did find since FY '24, not all the regions have been utilizing their planning grant capacity. And then also with the sites planning grants not being included in that capacity, it's given the regions a range of 30 to 40% capacity for more planning grants. So as I mentioned, that study will be detailed in the next committee meeting at 11 o'clock. I'll see you guys can get more information. Any questions?
To be determined, once we're done combing through the analysis, get the information from the next committee, we'll have more feedback from the regions. Okay. Application evaluation, communication and best practices. We want to shift this discussion specifically to talk about some observations from members who have served on application review work groups. This quarter, DHCD implemented a new feedback loop process that provided clear communication and transparency. And so staff's going to walk us through this new process at this time, and then we'll kind of continue the discussion.
All right, so again, as John mentioned, we have implemented a new feedback loop process that is meant to be more transparent and provide more communication to the regions, because that was some feedback that you all had given to us over the past couple of quarters. So this process you see on the screen is what we're doing now. So first, DHCD completes a technical review of the application. So that just means making sure all the documents are there, all the required attachments, and everything is prepared for the work group evaluation, which happens next. The work groups, I just want to note, are made up of at least 2 board members and at least 2 subject matter experts. And these experts obviously have experience in the field or the industry that the application is targeted towards. Once that work group review has been completed, 2 things happen. One, either there's no feedback loop questions, and at that point, we will communicate that to the region and communicate that the recommendation from the work group is to approve, and there's no further action needed on the region's part. The other thing that this can also trigger a feedback loop. So if there are outstanding questions or points of clarification that the work group needs, we will then send those questions to the region. The region has about a week to respond, and once we receive those responses, we send those to the work group. But there's some options that the regions can exercise at this point. One option will be to respond to the feedback with questions. And the second option would be to withdraw their application altogether. And that's a decision that the region or the applicant can make. We just need to receive that request in writing. And then lastly, if a region does submit feedback with responses, we'll send that back to the work group. We'll review it with them. And then we'll forward on the recommendation. But again, the region can withdraw their application. So again, this process is just designed to be more transparent and to provide better communication to the regions if there's something going on with their application. So are there any questions about this? So far, we've heard pretty good reviews.
So I want to just add to that. I don't want to, our state board chair is here, Emily, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I've had at least 2 or 3 meetings in recent months where Emily has spoken up about this type of thing, the feedback loop. And this is kind of a result of some of those conversations where we're taking either, whether it be information from the JLARC studies or information from individual groups after application processes and what have you, and trying to learn from them. And I think that's one of the things that Emily and her leadership has brought us to say, you know, it's not necessarily that the process is broken or the process doesn't work. It's more, how do we continue to enhance that feedback so that we're getting information both ways. So I appreciate you doing that, but also just please continue to keep the ideas coming. Anything that enhances the process is really important. And this is the core of the program right here. So. Okay, as many of you know, the work groups play a critical role in shaping the strength of applications before they reach the board. Over time, we've started to see some consistent patterns in what makes projects successful and where applications tend to fall short. And so I want to take a minute just to highlight some of the observations that we feel like over the last several months we've noted on some of the successful projects. First, the strongest applications are clearly anchored in the growth and diversification plan. Projects that directly address a defined strategy or economic gap tend to move forward more smoothly because the alignment is clear from the beginning. Second, we continue to see the importance of true regional collaboration. The most competitive projects are not driven by a single organization. Instead, they reflect coordination across industry, education, and other regional partners. That level of alignment strengthens both the application and the long-term impact. Third, measurable outcomes matter. Projects that clearly define what success looks like, whether that's job creation, individuals trained, or business served, are much easier to evaluate and ultimately support. And finally, sustainability remains key. Strong applications demonstrate not only how Go Virginia funds will be utilized, but how the project will continue beyond the grant. A clear and realistic long-term plan is critical. None of these things are necessarily new concepts, but hearing them consistently reinforces how important they are in the evaluation process. And so I'm going to pause there and open it up for additional thoughts or observations, but just as a reminder, I think that's a key piece, is that it's not necessarily new. But I know in sitting on the work groups, the themes that I continue to hear, particularly sustainability is a big deal. And trying to make sure that that the projects, that there's this seed process in a way, and then they grow from there. And then the other thing is, boy, a project that's really well defined and it laid out almost like a roadmap. I can't tell you how many times we get on a call and when you see one of those, it's like, okay, I don't have a lot of comments. This is really kind of self-explanatory and checks all the boxes, and those go really smooth. So, but we'd love to hear feedback or any comments, ways that we can continue to help the regional councils prepare projects that make it smoother sailing, because that's really what it's about. Anybody? Something?
Well, and I'd just like to add, we as staff are always happy to come to regional council meetings. If you'd like us to come and just have a listening session or even prepare a short workshop that could talk about project development and evaluation, and I'm thinking specifically geared towards regional council members because of the critical role that they play in the process. We would be more than happy to do that. And so, John and Emily, I just want to make sure it's noted here that, the group that's here advising you, that staff would be happy to come and support a regional council in that way.
Well, I know when we're evaluating the project and there's a question, and someone from staff can speak up and say, hey, I talked to this individual and this is what really is they're trying to convey, this is what they're trying to say. So it may not come through on the initial application, but having that feedback at that level after the fact is really helpful. Any other comments? Okay.
Hello.
Sure.
I was just going to say, we definitely utilize the staff. Cody, we're calling all the time for Region 8, and we definitely appreciate all the support he gives and really sharing with us what's happening across the Commonwealth as we're working on identifying projects in Region 8. And so we appreciate him.
I wanted to echo the same thing. We've had Cody and a few members of the staff, and always welcome Sarah to come back home and visit.
All right, we don't want Cody's head to get too big. Any others? Thanks for that feedback. I know that's important to the staff too. So. All right. Next on the agenda is informational items. So now we'll move to an update on the Regional Council Self-Assessment Initiative. As a reminder, this effort is designed to gather feedback from council members on governance, engagement, operations, and collaboration across regions. The goal is to establish a baseline understanding of strengths and opportunities for improvement. We'll provide a brief update on participation levels, which have been strong, and what the next steps will be. Again, there's not going to be any action on this. This is more informational for the regional councils. So I'm going to let Sharon run from here and talk about the results.
Thank you. So as you all know, we've been talking about the regional council assessment for a couple of months now, and we finally reached the finish line with having these results here. So we've had nearly 100 council members participate across all 9 regions, which we thought was fantastic. It's almost a 50% response rate. And these are just some high-level insights from what we found. A strong foundation across all of the regions. One thing that all the regions mentioned is that they understand the Go Virginia mission, they're excited about it, and they really want to put that mission to work within their respective regions. Staff consistently rated as a top strength, and then councils report effective operation. So that was a huge positive that's coming out of this self-assessment. Now, the things that the councils care about, the desire for stronger state board and regional alignment. And this committee does just that, making sure that we bridge those opportunities between the region and the state board. A need to strengthen project pipeline and applicant readiness. There's opportunities to improve new member onboarding and role clarity. And then lastly, the increased use of the competitive or the multi-region fund. A lot of the council members noted enthusiasm around tapping into this resource. So these are just some high level things, and I guess, John, I'll turn it back over to you to talk about.
Okay, so thank you, Sharon. I think what stands out most is really we have a strong foundation across the regions. There's clear alignment with the mission, and that's important. It speaks to the work that's been done over the past several years as the program continues to evolve. At the same time, the themes around pipeline development, alignment, and onboarding are not surprising. And there are areas where this committee can continue to provide support and direction moving forward. We appreciate the strong participation from the councils. I'll be working closely with board leadership to assess the findings and identify the next steps to address key themes and ensure continued progress across the regions. So I think, in summary, the way I would phrase it is, we've had initial discussions, those things have taken place. We want to make sure we're interpreting the data correctly. We'll continue to absorb all that, and then we'll provide additional information as we go forward. I think one of the things I'm also reminded is this committee in itself is new. So while the councils have been around since the beginning, the fact that we created this kind of came out of January's study and what have you. So we're still trying to figure out what we want to be able to grow as well. And we'll take all this information together and give you that feedback. I know I saw a question about can we get a presentation?
Yeah.
And the answer to that is yes. Well, sorry, Sheriff said yes. Volunteering her stuff. So.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Any other comments on this?
I think just one comment. This is Randy Lale. I'm a little bit surprised that the operational funding for the regions didn't come up in any of this. The $250,000 has been the same since 2016 or 17, whatever it was. obviously one of the ways you continue to get strong projects is that you have qualified and strong staff in the regions that can shepherd these projects through the process. So at some point, that $250,000 is not going to be adequate. So I don't know what we do about that, but I don't know of many folks that are still operating on $2017 at this point.
I would prefer. Understood, Randy. And I know we've had, a staple, I think the last retreat, that subject came up as well. Any other comments? Great. Well, it sounds like, we have breezed through the agenda. And here at the end, if nobody has additional comments, as we conclude today's meeting, I appreciate everybody's time and continued commitment to strengthening the Go Virginia regional framework. I think that's an important part of our process. Today's discussion reflects the ongoing work to improve how we manage resources, support project development, and enhance communication across regions. We'll follow up with any relevant materials and next steps discussed during the meeting. And again, thank you for your engagement. And with that, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks, you. Yeah. I would feel so much